Sup guys, I was looking at my vanguard tier list, which considers all vanguard ships regardless of hull type, and it came to me that even though I have thoroughly tested all these ships and know where they stand relative to each other in their own hull classes, I have never tested many of them cross-hull. So I wanted to make sure that a B tier heavy cruiser is actually about as good as a B tier destroyer. The main reason I never tested them cross-hull is because destroyers tend to have 100 to 200 anti-air, heavy cruisers between 200 and 300, and light cruisers generally have over 300 anti-air, so it's just more convenient to test them against ships that have similar AA to start with. However, this isn't anything that a few anti-air raiders can make up for. In particular, I wanted to compare some of the B tier stat-stick ships to make sure that they really do belong, and not just because they seem good, because they compare favorably with ships in their own hull classes. For some of the higher tier ships, especially ones commonly used in solo bosses, like Mogador, Hindenburg, Taiyuan, and so on, I am pretty familiar with how they stack up against each other. For this, I used Rune as a measuring stick and compared her to Harbin and Hatsuzuki. Rune is pretty much a pure stat stick who is decently bulky and has solid damage post-augment, purely based off base numbers. She has her hit shields, but they don't really do a whole lot. Hatsuzuki is also a stat stick, but provides more team support with her 5% damage reduction, and being a destroyer means that she can carry the Hedgehog and take care of enemy submarines. Harbin is slightly squishier than the other two, and her smokescreen isn't super reliable because you want to give her high damaging torpedoes so that she can deal damage, but they still contribute more to Vanguard survival than Rune's shields. Overall though, Harbin would have to pull a little more damage to compensate for her lack of bulk. I did my testing in 13.4, first between Rune and Harbin, and then Rune and Hatsuzuki. The raw footage will be on my testing channel, linked in the description. All three ships are much more suited for campaign than boss fights as well, so testing them in campaign will be much more representative of their actual performance. As usual, I made sure their AA stats are close to equal, and only took results from 3-star carrier and battleship nodes. I wasted thousands of oil, first because I did runs without accounting for the fleet tech AA, for which Rune has quite a bit less than the other two, and then again because I had Shimakaze in the boss fleet, which gave Hatsuzuki a torpedo buff. In the end, I somehow managed to get a decent sample. Looking at the results, Rune did the least damage, and then Hatsuzuki, and Harbin did the most. There are several additional factors to consider. First is their equipment. Harbin can upgrade her main guns to the Mogador gun if you have the option available, while Rune is already using the best heavy cruiser gun available to her. Both of their torpedoes are plus 10, but Harbin is obviously going to get way more out of plus 13 torpedoes in comparison to Rune. Although Rune is an okay main tank, if you have a better tank, like Brest for example, and you're just looking for a ship that brings some extra damage for the middle or rear position of the fleet, you might be able to use offensive auxiliaries without dying, and in that case Harbin would get much more out of Oxytorps than Rune out of Fumo radars. Next is the way their damage is distributed through the battle. Rune's reload and firepower buffs ramp up, and she has no preloads, while Harbin has preloaded torps. The shorter the battle is, the more advantageous it is for Harbin. Even though I'm only using 2 real damaging ships in the fleet, the battles are still ending fast enough for Harbin to outperform Rune most of the time. If you use them in the boss fleet though, perhaps the battles will last for about a minute 30, and then Rune might be able to catch up to Harbin. Keep in mind that this doesn't mean that Harbin is always straight up stronger than Rune. If it was just a single stationary enemy in the center of the field, Rune might be able to outdamage Harbin, but with the shields in campaign, which Harbin's torpedoes bypass, and the adds at the top and bottom of the screen that heavy cruiser guns can't lock onto but destroyer guns can, Harbin ends up dealing a bit more damage overall. As for Hatsuzuki, her and Rune's bulk are quite similar, but Hatsuzuki's damage reduction is more impactful than Rune's shields. Once again, She could be using the Mogador gun, and having fully upgraded torps would help her more than Rune, although not as much as Harbin. Taking Hatsuzuki's extra bit of fleet support with similar damage and bulk into account, I think she should be ranked above Rune. I'm pleasantly surprised that these three ships are as close they are to each other in terms of damage, meaning I didn't make any huge errors in putting them in the same tier. I didn't have any expectations and wouldn't have been surprised if Rune ended up dealing significantly more damage than Hatsuzuki in a head-to-head comparison, because previous Hatsuzuki and Rune tests had different numbers due to AA stats, so I had no frame of reference for comparisons between these ships. Anyway, I'm going to shuffle around some of these ships in B tier with these results taken into account. Heavy cruisers will go near the bottom since they lack utility, and their stats aren't significantly better than destroyers and light cruisers. And destroyers will move up since they deal similar amounts of damage as the other two hull classes, while bringing anti-submarine warfare and other utility. I'll leave Scylla at the top though because she does contribute quite a bit to anti-air. Alright, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.